So welcome to Iona Shopping Center. Now what?
The first thing I want to do is say to them, I have what I call a rental assessment application. Basically, it's the credit app you use to qualify in a new tenant for a new lease. I want to do a credit check. I want the tenant's sales, his existing sales and his sales as long as he's been a tenant. So if it's a 5-year lease and this is his 3rd year, I want his sales monthly for the last 3 years so I can see, has he always had a challenge? Is it something recent? We lock access to our roofs. They don't all have warranties. Certainly if we build a new building and there's a warranty, we're very strict about this. We tell the tenants, you must call us in advance if your vendor wants access to the roof. We typically, when there's a warranty in place, pay for our roofer to accompany the tenant's vendor on the roof, because we know most of the roof leaks happen when the tenant's vendors go up there. So we try to really control that so that it helps with the longevity of the roof.
For those of you who own properties and hire third-party leasing and management companies, and what kind of reporting you should be requiring and how many meetings you should be having with your third-party firms. So at the very least, in the listing agreement, you should be requiring a monthly leasing activity report. I think that that is fine to keep you up to date on what the activities are going on your property.
I had a situation where I bought a 2-acre piece of land. It was in an out parcel of a shopping center, a grocery anchored shopping center. But in all of their leases, it said no pharmacy. And I had Walgreens who wanted to be on this 2-acre site. So I convinced the grocery store to exchange the release of the drugstore use with a payment. But then I had to go to those 9 other people and get them to release the restriction also. I was able to do it, so just about $50,000 for those 9 releases and approvals, which was a very good deal. So my point is, maybe you do end up having to abide by the restriction, but you should give it the old college try.
Personally, I don't think it's important to have the name of the shopping center on the pylon sign, and I always try to argue with the city that no one knows the name of the shopping center, and it's way more important to have the tenant signs on it. So I'll make that teeny tiny at the top so that I have more room for tenant signs. So what that means is, instead of maybe a blue or red on a white background, I want a white on a navy blue background so that the white letters jump out. So we number our light poles. So we put a little sticker on the bottom of every light pole so that when maybe me or my property manager or my director of operations is doing a light check, it's much easier to identify the light pole for the electrician for a repair. This is something I learned when I bought a property and found that the light poles were all numbered. And I know I've spoken on previous episodes how important lights are. We do light checks weekly because of the liability. If you have lights out, it's a big problem. So if that agent prospects, they will be very proud to tell multiple stories of that. So if they have no stories, they don't prospect. Asking for them to come with a strategy of how they would anticipate filling the property is important. And by interviewing 3 to 5 firms, you will get ideas from the firms that you don't hire. And that's okay too. We're all in the business to get the business.
One point in my career, early in my career, I had a client who we had a failed Lone Star Steakhouse, and we had a corporation, and it was them versus a local family-owned restaurant. And my client was a CPA and attorney. And it was one of the most interesting meetings I sat in my career. I'd been in the business at that point about 20 years. And this guy just ripped up this corporation's financial statements in front of them. And he ended up going with the local guy. And 20 years later, the local guy's still in the space. And that corporation has closed, I would say, 50% of their units.
I want to speak about obstacles and how to overcome them when you own shopping centers. So for example, your leasing agent or you as the leasing agent has an elbow space. So first of all, don't buy shopping centers that have elbow spaces. So my point is, whatever the obstacle is for most of your prospects, is it the elbow space with no visibility? Then tell your leasing agent to go find other tenants that don't have visibility and exposure.
So credit check. I do a credit check on every potential tenant and their spouse. I just had the situation this weekend. I said, well, you need to fill out my application. I need to pull a credit check on you and your husband. Why my husband? Because in the state of Florida, and you guys should check this in your own states, if they sign a lease in an LLC and then they sign a guarantee with just Beth Azor and they don't have husband Azor on it, then it is not a valid guarantee. Basically, one spouse could put everything else in the other spouse's name, and then when you go to, God forbid, sue them for 3 years of rent, you're shit out of luck.